Hello, Binn Ghulbain knitters. So I've had some requests from those of you that have purchased the Binn Ghulbain shawl to give you a tutorial on how to put this shawl together. The shawl is made up of basically a rectangle, but done in 3 parts. You knit a strip, and here's an example of that strip. You knit a strip along the back that's made up of a cable. Then you pick up stitches along the bottom edge and knit down with a garter stitch at bottom hem. And then you pick up stitches at the top and go up, including some short rows and a folded hem. Here is an example done in 2 other colors of the shawl, or of the shrug, right here. And if you can see the cable along the back, the bottom half, and then the top half. And then we'll turn this around. Here's where the short rows come in, right in here. This also has a folded hem, so. And we're gonna go through each of these parts as we go along. The first part is the cable band, so we're gonna learn how to read charts, how to manipulate cables with a cable needle and without a cable needle, because I personally don't use a cable needle anymore. And then when I get back to Portland, because right now I'm in Tucson, when I get back to Portland, we'll take on the bottom half. So you'll learn how to pick up stitches and knit down in the shawl. And then after that, I'll do a 3rd segment that will be the top half. So that will be reading lace charts, how to do short rows, and that may take a 4th video. Short rows, and then hemming and blocking your finished product. So we're going to have at least 4, maybe 5 videos to finish this project together. You can do this anytime, but you can also go to the website blacksheepfiberemporium.com, and you can get a kit that will let you pick 2 colors, and I'll explain that in a minute, 2 colors of yarn to make the Binn Ghulbain shawl. It takes 4 skeins of yarn in 2 different colors, 2 of each color. In this case, I'm making on my shawl the band out of the dark green, or the sedge color, and then we're going to do the top half out of the grass. You can pick whatever color you want. The example was out of Irish Emerald and Tide Pool, I believe. Okay? Now, for this class, I'm going to go ahead and make the band out of the grass, just because it's a little easier to see. However, I'm going to rip this out, go back to my sedge, and we'll use this for the upper part of the shawl when it's time. All right, reading a chart. Here is the chart for the cable. And in this pattern, I did not include the written instructions. I may go back and do that later, but it's much easier to read a chart than it is to read written instructions for cables. The way that you read a chart is we read from right to left and left to right, completely the opposite to the way you would read a book. Left to right, down from the top. So from the bottom up on a flat chart, now a circular is a little different. That's just going to be, a circular you'd go from right to left over and over again. But in this case, we go from right to left, so this reads purl, 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 a 2/1 cable, another 2/1, but this time right leaning cable, purl, purl, 2/1 left leaning cable, 2/1 right leaning cable, purl, purl, purl. Okay, so let's do that. So we have 3 purls. 1, 2, 3. And then, and I'm going to tighten up this tail just because we're at the very first row here. Now we're going to do this 2/1 left leaning cable. And also, just so you know, see the little shading in the back? That means they want us to purl that back stitch. So I'm going to see how this space starts over here and drops. That means I'm going to pull the first 2 stitches off this cable needle. And I'm using a stand-in darning needle just because my other cable needle is too big. I'll also show you on the next go around how to do this without a cable needle at all. So we're going to pull this off, pull those 2 stitches off, drop them to the front, and because this is shaded, we're going to purl the next stitch, and then put those 2 stitches back on my resting needle to get ready to knit them. They're back on, pull that cable needle off, and knit. 1, 2. Okay. The next stitch is a right leaning 2/1 cable. In this instance, the first stitch is going to come off onto the cable needle, and drop to the back. We knit the next 2 stitches. 1. And if you see what's happening here, I'm having to hold this cable needle and wrangle it. And that is not always the easiest thing to do. Hence the reason I don't use cable needles anymore. I can tell you if you really feel like you need a cable needle, a crook needle works a little better. There's not quite so much finagling going on. All right, now we're going to pull this dropped cable or drop stitch back onto my resting needle, pull it off, and then purl. And that again is representing this shaded portion right here. Okay, now I have to purl 2. 1, 2, and we're going to do that all over again. So 2/1 left leaning cable. I'm going to grab my cable needle, pull these off, purl 1. Much easier to wrangle in the front than it is in the back. Put those stitches back on and knit them. 1, 2, and just so you know, if it really feels like you're having a hard time keeping track of this knit, you can knit through the back loop on the first couple of rows. It won't cause any harm, and it makes it a little easier to knit through the back than it is to knit through the front. Okay, and then again we have our right leaning 2/1 cable. So again, onto a cable needle, drop to the back, because this is going to be our purl stitch. I'm going to knit 2, 1, 2, again back through the back loop just because it's easier, and then put this stitch back onto my needle, onto my resting needle, right there, drop it and purl. And then finally purl the last 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And there you go. You've got 4 cables. Okay? Now, to go back, we're going to read row 2. And it's a little tricky. Now, this is a resting row, so there's no cables. There will never be any cables on your even rows. However, you are going to read these stitches as if they're from the front, but when you actually perform them, you're on the back of your work. So although this looks like purl, 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 and then 4 knits, and then 4 purls, and then 4 knits, and then 4 purls, when you're on the back of your work, to achieve the 4 purls in the front, you need to knit 4, purl 4, knit 4, purl 4, knit 4. And that's just a standard of charted designs. You look at this view as if you're reading it from the front. So I'm going to knit 4 to achieve my purls in the front. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to purl 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Purl 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, that doesn't look like. Let's get that captured up a little better there. Knit 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there we got our first 2 rows. So there you have it. And you can see the beginnings of little twists happening here and here. Okay, now we're going to look at row 3. On row 3 we purl 4. We have a 2/2 cable. to the left, purl 4 again, a 2/2 cable to the right, purl 4. So we're going to purl 4. Let me get this tightened up a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's time for our big cable. And because this is headed this way, I'm going to pull off the first 2 stitches and drop them to the front. There's our 2 stitches on my cable needle. Drop to the front. I'm going to knit 2. 1, 2. Put them back on. And there are all sorts of techniques for, some people just knit right off the cable needle. I don't. And I'll show you why. I'll show you how I normally make cables here on the next round. All right, knit the remaining 2 that we crossed. And then we have 4 more purls. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a cable that goes the other way. So it's going the other direction. Therefore, we need to drop these to the back. So we're going to pull these 2 off. First 2 stitches off. Drop to the back. Let's get our needle where our yarn where we need it. Knit 2. Put the stitches back on the needle. Back on the resting needle. Knit 2. And purl the remaining 4 to the end of the row. Alrighty. See how that cable's beginning to even get stronger? You can see the X there. Alright, we have 1 more resting row, row 4. Okay? It looks like a purl 4, but we really are going to knit 4, purl 4, knit 4, purl 4, knit 4. And I'll explain that little line that you can see right there in just a minute. Knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, purl 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, knit 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, purl 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then finally knit the remaining 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that is row 4 back. Okay, now we have 5, row 5 now, and if you'll look down here, 5 is not exactly the same as row 1, but it incorporates exactly the same stitches, only in reverse. So we have a right leaning 2/1 purled cable, a left leaning 2/1 purled cable, a gap of purls, and then another right leaning and left leaning purled cable. I'm going to show you how to do these without a cable needle. And it's exactly the same maneuver of the yarn. The only difference is that I'm going to move those cable position or move those yarn or loops into the cable knitted position before I ever do it. And I'll show you how I wrangle my needles to get that done. All right, row 5, we're going to purl 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, now I have a right leaning 2/1, so I'm going to be using 3 stitches, and I sort of pull them up with my working needle and I identify, there's my 3 stitches, okay? And these 2 stitches need to cross over the first one. The first one goes to the back. So what I do is I grab my needle, my resting needle, and I go grab that stitch that's going to go to the back, pop those 2 off the needle and let them float free, and then grab them again with my working needle and put them on my resting needle. So I've positioned the cable ready to go. Okay? So let's do that again. And I'll put it all back. All right. So here are the 3 stitches that I'm going to manipulate. All right? This one's going to go to the back. These 2 are going to come to the front. So I'm going to grab with my resting needle, the one that's going to the back, let go. These are sitting there free I'm going to grab them relatively quickly with my working needle, put them back onto my resting needle after I twist them around that one in the back. All right? Same thing that I did before with the cable needle. I just position them first, then knit them. So I'm going to knit 2, 1, 2, purl 1, and then work on to the second one. The second one is a right over left, or a left leaning 2 over 1 purled cable. Oh yeah, and I purled 2 over 1 purled cable. So in this case, here are my 3 stitches, but what's going to happen this time is that these 2 are going to come to the front and that rear one is going to come around in the back. So I'm going to go like that. Okay, the first 2 go on my resting needle. The rear one, or that purl stitch, is going to go on my working needle. I reposition it after twisting them around, and I purl first and knit the remaining 2. 1, 2. And there you see I've got those 2 cables diverging. One's heading to the right, one's heading to the left. Okay, now we're at this center place where I purl 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to do that all over again. So purl 2, and these are exactly the same stitches as was shown before. I have right leaning 2 over 1 cable and a left leaning 2 over 1 purled cable. So this one, the purl has to drop to the back. So here is my 3 identified stitches. I'm going to reach with my resting needle around to the back, drop the 2 front needles, grab them with my working needle, put them back on the resting needle, and I'm ready to knit 2, 1, 2, and purl 1. And see how it's twisted? I've pulled it around the back. Purl 1. Okay? Then the next stitch is a left leaning. So here are my 3 stitches. Correct? This one's going to go to the back. These 2 go to the front. So we grab them with our resting needle. Drop that single purl that's going to be a purl in a minute. Grab it with my working needle. Bring it to the front. Reload it onto my resting needle. Purl 1. Knit 2. 1, 2. And then I purl the remaining stitches. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I'm going to do one more rest row and then we're going to talk about the sequence here. So we just finished row 5. I'm going to do row 6. So it's knit 3, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 3. Knit 3. And you can kind of read this on the back too. See how I see my little purls here? Purl 2. And then I've got some knits. 1, 2. And then 2 purls. So you can get to where you can read your work from the back when you're on that rest row. You are always knitting your knits and purling your purls. Or actually you're knitting your purls and purling your knits, but get the idea. When you're looking at it, it's a purl on a purl that you can see, just because of the nature of knitting. Okay, there's my rest row. All right, row 6. Again, row 7 will be those 2 over 2 cables, but just in a different position. Then we go on to a single in the row, a single 2 over 2, then back to the 2 over 1s, 2 over 1s, 2 over 2. The way that this is going to work is, see these boldened lines? And I believe if you have a color copy, this will be color for you. From rows 4 through 15, you repeat. So work 1 up to 15, go back down to 4. Go back up to 15, go back down to 4. Go back up to 15, back down to 4. And continue that until you've got a 44-inch length of band, a 44-inch band. Okay? When you get to 44 inches, then you're going to knit rows 16 and 17 and then bind off. So here's an example of, I think, 3 or 4 repeats. Here we have that. And this is the actual one I'm working on for the sample. Okay? You can see the cables are meandering along here. Okay? I did my first 15 and then I've done 15 rows in a repeated manner. Okay? Good luck. If you have any questions, post them down below. You can also follow this, that way you know when I get the next video up. And now that we've worked the kinks out of this, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that it'll go a lot faster and that you'll get the next iterations every week is the plan. So happy knitting. I hope this helps. Put questions on because I can do some little follow-up answers either verbally, or I can do a live stream at Facebook, or I can just put a little snippet on to the video on this channel. All right, goodbye. Good luck.